Wake up, America. It's time for the next PSYOP. Supposedly. Well, you know what? Let me start with, it was around, 1 o'clock today, maybe we got the first reports. Or no, it was around noonish. We heard there is some grave national security threat. This was according to, I believe, the Republican chairman of the was it the Intelligence Committee? Gosh, I should have double-checked that. There's been so much noise today that I tried to not focus on all the noise, because frankly then you get bogged down and we can't get to the real meat of this, because clearly they're trying to obscure the truth, drip-feeding us these little leaks, giving us little bits of information so that they can let our imaginations run wild. That's why they always do crap this way. That's why they, by default, classify everything and then leak whatever information or disinformation they feel helps their case. So that we, the public, don't have any broader context, and they can cherry-pick whatever they've got under their little classified hood that they think is going to help them politically. And that's what the regime chooses to leak. And so today, the day after the Senate passed that treacherous legislation authorizing $60 billion for Ukraine, something like, $40 billion for Israel, and then $10 billion for Taiwan. Is that how it broke down? The $60 billion for Ukraine part I know is right. I just can't remember the other two. Because nobody supports that, and it is essentially dead on arrival in the House. That's what the consensus was. Everyone understood, okay, there's no way the House can approve this because it's completely unpopular. Voters don't want it. Voters don't give a damn about Ukraine. They probably don't want to send billions of dollars to a country like Israel, which, Israel's war is kind of controversial for reasons that I've certainly outlined on this channel, as well as the fact that Israel has a much lower debt-to-GDP ratio than the United States. And so, since the U.S. is not in as good a financial position as Israel, even if you support the war in Israel, Israel's in a much better position to pay for it than we are. And then finally, Taiwan, almost no one gives a damn about, except for, Chinese Americans who are anti-CCP. I mean, Chinese Americans are a subset of Asian Americans, which are, the one minority that really doesn't get a whole lot of pandering because they're just so darn small. And so this bill is a loser all around. Nobody wants to send $110 billion to fund foreign wars right now. It's the last thing that anybody wants to do. And so, stage one of this plan to shift the narrative, to force the House, twist their arms, which it's not like the House doesn't want to approve this. They want to approve it. They just politically don't have the room to do it. But most people in the House, they love war. War helps them. And so they want a good reason to vote for this. And so the excuse started with this so-called national security threat, which very quickly, within a couple of hours, it was updated. We got one more grain of sand. We got one more little breadcrumb, perhaps. Look at it that way. The next breadcrumb was that this national security threat had something to do with Russia. And then like an hour after that, we got a leak that it has something to do with Russia and space. So we have national security threat, Russia, space. These are the keywords that they're feeding us. They're feeding us little talking points, one word at a time. And so the next word that we got after national security threat, Russia, space, was nuke. So it has something to do with the Russians and space nukes. This sounds like Reagan's Star Wars psyop from the 80s, when Reagan pretended to have, massive space lasers that he could use to destroy the Soviet Union, and that he was developing this. And he got the Soviets so spooked that it helped contribute to them spending themselves into bankruptcy. And so Star Wars was never real. It was a total psyop. And now they're reversing the script and telling us essentially that Russia is, if it's not already fully operational, because this is why they gave us literally, 6 words? They gave us a 6-word leak, or actually it was a 3-word leak followed by 3 one-word leaks. And so you could not drip feed this. I mean, they're drip feeding us 1 water molecule at a time. And so they just want us to fill in all the context ourselves. And so what they're clearly hoping for us to think is that Russia essentially has their own nearly, if not fully operational, Star Wars program, which they could use to annihilate the United States, wipe us off the map from space. And so this is coming just as the House is about to vote on this funding for Ukraine, which, of course, money for Ukraine is money against Russia. And so this is going to be the big excuse as to why we have to send money to Ukraine, because obviously if we don't send the Ukrainian money laundering mafia $60 billion to carve up amongst themselves and amongst the various U.S. defense contractors, well then obviously Russia will be able to get their Star Wars program up and running, and they will blow us up. They're going to blow us up from low orbit. It's like God. What was all those meme titles that Tim Pool likes to write? When he's just super exaggerating and he's trying to be, trying to be an irony bro. I mean, it literally is like something he'd come up with. America nuked from orbit by based Putin. Except this is actually the leak we're getting. You know what? I'm making that the title of this video. America to be nuked from orbit by based Putin. But of course, it has to be 99.9% false, or else they wouldn't be telling us. That's just not how any of this works. That's how the PSYOPs always work. They conceal what's true, and even if there are true facts that support their narrative, they can't give us any facts, because then that might inform us on other things. It might help us deduce other truths that don't help them. And so they have to give us they have to sell us a bill of goods in every single case. And so now they're trying to sell us Russian Star Wars. And this is going to be where you start seeing people in the House flip their vote on the Ukraine funding bill. They're going to say, gee, you know what? I put America first. That's who I am. I only care about America. But now, in light of this new information that has just been shared with us by our glorious intelligence community, I believe that the threat from Russia is so great, we have to do everything we can to oppose them. And because I put America first, I am funding Ukraine. That's going to be the new pitch. Funding the war in Ukraine is America first. Mark my words, that is the new Republican narrative. Now, as of yet, Speaker Mike Johnson, who is the leader of the House of Representatives, he is not saying it yet. He's not, because of course this is officially all still classified. So he's not talking about it. He's saying, hey, there is no immediate threat. And I have to say, it's interesting that when all this came out, it was the Democrat on the committee who was trying to downplay the seriousness of the situation. The Republican came out and issued a statement. The Republican head of the committee, again, I forget exactly which committee it was. I assume it was the Intelligence Committee, saying that there was a great national security threat. It was urgent, and the president needs to declassify it all so the American people can know. And then the Democrat came out and said, okay, yes, it is a problem, and the committee chairman is correct for highlighting it, but it's not an immediate threat, and everything's going to be okay. This is a long-term problem. It's not something that is urgent. Which was interesting to see the partisan split break down like that. I wouldn't think that there would be a partisan split on this kind of an issue, because this is more about trying to give Republicans a reason to go along with something that the Democrats, you would assume, all support anyway, which is funding Ukraine. Now, I want to make it clear, I'm not against declassifying things. I think that any declassifications are good, even though I understand that they're going to use declassification in this case just to push their own narrative. I still would rather have the information than have it be hidden from us. I just wish that they would declassify more things, namely everything. There shouldn't be anything classified. In a different time, maybe when the American government was could be seen as like good faith actors, perhaps I would feel differently. But not in today's day and age. These people can't be trusted with secrets. They're our enemy. And so this is all just starting to play out. None of this has happened yet. Perhaps I will be proven wrong. If so, I hope I am. That would be great. I hope this bill still doesn't pass. And I will very gladly come back and admit, happily, that none of this came to pass. Personally, I am encouraged by what I'm seeing online. I'm not seeing people who were against funding Ukraine suddenly swapping positions. It's not as far as like regular people go, regular users. But Twitter is not real life, and so just because people on Twitter have not flipped doesn't mean that people in Congress will not flip. And as of right now, that's who matters. Now, there is some crazy guy from InfoWars saying that they're going to... and I say that knowing that InfoWars has been right about a lot of stuff. Okay, I've come to accept that over the years. They're not as crazy as I once thought they were, but still, they exaggerate and jump to conclusions quite a bit. That has always been... and it's not even Alex saying this, okay? And Alex Jones has been known to hire some Looney Tunes to work at InfoWars. I mean, friggin' Roger Corsi. Need I say more? The quintessential Q boomer. A total fraud. That's who Alex hired to be his White House correspondent. So say all that, with all that as like a preface, the InfoWars guy brought up something that I didn't know about, which was the 1967 was it like the Outer Orbit Treaty, or I can't remember the exact thing, but it's some treaty to do with space that essentially the Russia signed saying, we'll never put nukes in space. I don't know if exactly that's what it says, because I'd never heard of the treaty, but that was his characterization. If they were going to make the case that Russia did put nukes into space, this would be a violation of that treaty, and that this would be used as a justification for NATO to go after Russia, possibly declare war on Russia, but wars are never declared these days, so I don't believe that part, but perhaps get involved directly in Ukraine. And that I could certainly see, because that is how the regime leverages this kind of information or disinformation, whatever it is, whether it's true or not, doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's out there. Just like Harry Reid, I almost said Andy Reid. Harry Reid, when he came out and said Mitt Romney didn't pay his taxes, but he said it on the Senate floor, where that is protected speech. And he couldn't be sued for libel or anything like that. He just said Mitt Romney didn't pay his taxes, and he said it specifically while he was on the Senate floor when he can't be prosecuted or sued, civilly. And so then he came off and he wouldn't say anything about it, and all he would say is that, well, it's out there now, so Mitt Romney needs to answer for it. And then after the election, he was asked again about it. It's like, hey, well, whatever happened to all that stuff about Mitt Romney not paying his taxes? Is that even true? And Harry Reid basically said, well, no, of course not. I made it all up. And the interviewer was like, well, wait, how do you justify that? He just made it up. He's like, well, Romney didn't win, did he? And that is the point. You say things, you plant ideas, you plant these concepts out into the public discourse. You inject them out there through leaks or through other forms of speech that can't be held accountable. Things that easily could or could not be true, and then you leverage those little breadcrumbs, those little grains of information, whether they're true or false, and you build your narrative on top of it. And it doesn't matter if that foundation is later exposed to be a bunch of hot air, because by then the narrative will have served its purpose, just like the Gulf of Tonkin, just like Remember the Maine, just like Pearl Harbor, just like all of it. People are already speculating that Russia has already launched the nukes into space and blown up American satellites. Do you not remember Havana Syndrome and that total made-up fiction where American spooks were claiming that Russia was using directed energy weapons on them that they were sick, and eventually, they did this big clinical study, and it was essentially written off as paranoia, that it was purely psychosomatic. These were people who they had such strong Putin derangement syndrome that they believed that Russia was targeting them. They were literal crazy people who thought that Russia was getting inside of their brains, and that led that fear manifested psychosomatically as these headaches. And so don't tell me these people aren't capable of manufacturing some sort of Russian act of war against the United States. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here in the next one.